Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now. What really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Anything to talk about?
Yeah. What?
I would say there's something to talk about. The lovely Amanda LaFratta on the road, but nice enough to be a part of the program as always. Good morning, Amanda. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. How are you?
Well, I honestly, even though week one was week one, I kind of feel like week two was week one because we learned a lot more against some more quality opponents and a lot of upsets. We're going to get to Tennessee. They avoided what would have been a very significant one. And we're going to have today's tough question coming up. Comments from Cooper Mays, also comments from Jacob Warren on the Vol report. And want to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button. Great response over the weekend to some content that we put out, and we appreciate that. Like and subscribe, and please turn your notifications on. We need that. So I tell you what, Amanda, Tennessee comes away from that football game against Pitt, and Caleb and I talked about it after the game. Caleb Calhoun, who you can follow at offthehooksports.com. He's got the Josh Heupel press conference covered today, and it was certainly a bullet dodged. As you come away from that game after watching it, should Tennessee fans be concerned or pleased that they toughed out a victory? Because some teams didn't, like Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah, or Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. I think Tennessee fans should be very happy that they toughed out a victory. I mean, that's you finally have completed the last step in this whole process of getting better and being back. For a long time, it was good until at the end you hit a wall and you couldn't win, couldn't go through with it. So now you've gotten to the step where it's gotten hard in a hostile environment, and you came out with a victory, even in overtime. It's very hard to go somewhere in overtime and come out with a victory. And you did. On the road, came out with a victory in overtime, composed, all of that. Great coaching. Just, you should be very proud of this win.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and open it up to our chat board if you want to give us some comments. John saying, "Phew, ugly W, but a W nevertheless." Before we get to the down and dirty at 30, brought to you by Honeybee Coffee, Amanda, let's dive a little bit deeper into this Tennessee game. I know there was a lot going on, and we're going to get to that in other games and the NFL last night as well. So my Cowboys season is over. Dak Prescott with a broken hand, and he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, or I think 4 to 6 weeks. They're going to lose 5 of those games. I feel pretty confident. So that was a fun run. I got kind of excited. Amanda, the Tennessee game, I thought that Pitt was every bit as good up front as advertised. So let's not forget, this is the program that produced Aaron Donald. Let's not forget that this is a program that relies on a lot of movement up front, smaller guys. And I thought, quite frankly, they surprised Tennessee, and I thought Hendon Hooker was taken aback early in that game. I don't think he played his best. That's why they were down 10-0. But, Amanda, to your point, got out a victory. Let's not forget, this is the number 17 program in the nation on the road. If I told you in June that you beat the number 17 program in the nation on the road, you would take that. Now, I was also impressed by Tennessee's pass rush. Obviously, they had 4 sacks, knocked one quarterback out of the game and almost a second. And Keaton Slovis was the first. Matt Patty was hobbling around. The poor guy, man, he was really struggling. And Amanda, there were just too many dumb mistakes. Now, when I say a dumb mistake, just so you know what I'm referring to, I'm talking about a mistake that's probably not going to happen again. Like the Trayvon Flowers, I mean, that's a fifth-year senior. The fumbled punt return that kept the game alive in the fourth quarter, that he's just not going to do that probably again this year. That was just poor fundamentals. Instead of running through the ball, he ran through it too early. But there were some dumb mistakes. Now, as from a macro level, I do think that Tennessee is going to have to address what Pitt did to them up front and the way they defended them, because Hooker was a little bit surprised. But yeah, I just don't think those mistakes are going to crop up throughout the year. Amanda, maybe they will, but I don't think they will.
No, I don't think that they'll crop up at all. I mean, you have a very, in some of these positions, you have very strong veterans, and it's, you go out against Ball State and you put up the numbers that you did, and you played the way you did, but it's Ball State. So we're back to, a Power 5 conference and somebody that's good. I mean, Pitt's good. That no one ever said that they were bad. I didn't say I thought that they wouldn't be as good as they were last season. However, they're still good. And so, you have these big mistakes because it's the first big time game this season. Everyone has them. I mean, look at, Alabama, Texas. Look at Will Anderson, 2 offside penalties, twice in a row. So even the best player in college football is going to have them. No player's immune to that, but you learn from it, you continue on, and that's how it goes.
I agree. It's brought to you by Honeybee Coffee, the down and dirty at 30. Why is Honeybee so darn good, Amanda LaFratta?
It's just good coffee. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's just good coffee. It can be the 5% of the beans in the world. It could be the top, 1%. Doesn't matter. If it tastes good, it's good, and it's good coffee.
Let me fire off some things at you, and we'll get to the chat board. But as far as the weekend, the Alabama game you've mentioned, but before you're an Alabama fan, Texas, Alabama, I thought was way closer than anybody thought. However, I will say this. You have a Steve Sarkisian who would love to beat Alabama. That would be a game changer for his program and just boost what is already a fantastic 2023 class. So I think Texas came out with all guns blazing from a schematic standpoint. Credit Alabama. That's one of the ugliest games that they played in a long, long time for getting the win. I wonder, though, Alabama better than me. I think there were 15 penalties, most in the Nick Saban era. Is that a concern long term, or is that an aberration, or do we know?
I don't think it's a concern long term because, I mean, everybody knows it's Nick Saban's, team. So to be so not disciplined was very weird to see, but the environment that Texas had, and I'm not making excuses for, the way that Alabama played, because they did not play well. It was not a good win. It was, Alabama should have come out with an L in that game, but they survived. And that atmosphere was insane. If you get a chance to go on social media and look at some of the videos by the, Texas crowd and student section, and it was very, very, very hostile, very hostile and very loud.
So agreed. That's a place I'd really like to see a game. Certainly will like to go there. Love the city there. So we'll see if that's in the cards for Dave one day. But the big upset, obviously, is Texas A&M losing to Appy State at home. Now, Jimbo Fisher gets $10 million a year to come over from Florida State. I looked it up. His buyout's still about $90 million if they wanted to make a change. But I'm not suggesting that should be the case yet, Amanda. But I got a real issue with a team that comes out and loses to Appy State in this far into Jimbo Fisher's career. This is not a situation where they kind of slipped up and this is the first year. This should be a program number 6 in the nation at the time that should be established. These sorts of upsets shouldn't happen unless a team is in turmoil or unless it's a team in the first year of a rebuild. I got no excuses for Texas A&M, zero whatsoever.
No, Texas A&M has 56, I believe, 4-star and 5-star guys on their program apparently, or they've recruited 56, and App State's recruited 1. And it's just like, how does that even compare? Like, you should not be in the same game. And what it comes down to, it's not the talent level. The talent level's there. I mean, you're in Texas, for God's sake. The talent level's there. You're getting the recruits. It comes down to coaching. And it looks like, from this standpoint, Jimbo Fisher is a big fat fake.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Jameis Winston's a special player. I use the word generational probably too often, so I'm not going to use that. But I thought he was a special type of one-a-decade type of player. And then the other
cannon.
And I'm sorry?
Scott Van Pelt referred to him as the hand cannon when he was at Florida State. Hand cannon.
I like that. That's pretty good. And then, by the way, we're going to be joined by Chris Landry at LandryFootball.com to break down Tennessee from an X's and O's standpoint. The other big upset was Marshall beating Notre Dame. Now, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame in a bit of a lurch, and I recall being in the car the day that they named Brian Kelly's replacement. And here's exactly what I heard. I heard a bunch of players cheering. I heard a bunch of players really excited about the new coach, Marcus Freeman. That, to me, is scary. The fact that the players are so incredibly excited means, I think this is a given, that this is a player's coach. Now, you can make a player's coach work. Dabo Swinney is a player's coach, but for the most part, it doesn't work. And especially a guy that didn't have experience that one would think you would need as a head coach at Notre Dame. He's 36 years old. I just thought that was a bad hire at the time. I think Notre Dame had better be careful, or they are going to get themselves in a long-term mess like Tennessee did. I would not have a long leash with Marcus Freeman, and hopefully Notre Dame, for their sake, is smart enough not to have a tremendous buyout in place. But I believe that's a sign of things to come, and I'm not hindsighting it 2020, Amanda. I would have told you that last week. I didn't know it was Marshall, but I don't think Notre Dame will trend in the right direction in the coming weeks and years if it's Marcus Freeman.
I mean, I'm very taken aback by this loss. They played Ohio State really well. They looked like the better team. So then you go to question, well, how good is Ohio State then? Like, really, how good are they? If they've played this Notre Dame team who just lost to Marshall. I mean, it was touch and go for Ohio State for a long time during that game. So my question is, this is what kills me about college football, is because you can have a Notre Dame play an Ohio State within a point, and then you can have them lose to Marshall the next week. And it's not necessarily that Ohio State's that bad. It's just that, they came out flat. And I feel like that's the same with Alabama and Texas. Not that Alabama's as bad as they looked, but they just came out flat one week. So it goes like that throughout college football. It's insane.
I think Tennessee fans can probably relate to this, Amanda. Philip Fulmer was a bit of a player's coach, and there were always these games that Tennessee just wouldn't show up for, and it just against a lesser opponent and have to eke out a win. It seemed like it happened once a year, if not once every 2 years. And I think that's where Marcus Freeman is, but I don't think that he's nearly as well equipped as Philip Fulmer was, who had John Chavis and David Cutcliffe on his staff, who were both considered very, very good coordinators. So I don't know. I never thought that Notre Dame should have been in the top 10. I never thought it was a good hire, and I think you can vouch for me. I wouldn't say that hindsight 2020. So I want to get by the numbers, our OTH by the numbers, and that is Tennessee ranked, and a lot of numbers to look at now that we have a little bit more of a sample size. And talking about Tennessee, you have to start with the Vols are ranked and moved up the rankings considerably. And I thought that, Tennessee got a lot of respect from the AP. I thought they got a lot of respect from the coaches for that win. And really, they made more of a move in the coaches poll than anything else. So that makes me think that the coaches value that gritty win on the road as opposed to some people that are out there that say, oh, Tennessee should have beaten them by 20 points. Yes, Tennessee should have beaten them by 20 points, but ultimately, I thought that Pitt played a great game. So some other numbers, as Tennessee is now ranked 16 and 17 in the AP and coaches poll respectively. And with the win against Pitt, Heupel has more wins against AP top 20 opponents on the road, not neutral sites, than Tennessee's previous 3 coaches combined. Pretty crazy. Now, you got Jeremy Pruitt, Butch Jones, Derek Dooley were not able to defeat a top 20 opponent on the road. And, Pruitt is coaching for the New York Giants and never beat a top 20 team on the road. I think I shorted Jones when Jones is trying to get things going at Arkansas State. Dooley hired as an analyst at Alabama this past year. And then if you look back at those guys, former Tennessee coach Lane Kiffin would have beaten a top 20 team on the road had it not been for the infamous Mount Cody game in Tuscaloosa in 2009. So former Tennessee coach Philip Fulmer beat 13 AP top 20 teams on the road during his 17 seasons as a head coach. Johnny Majors only won 6 such games. It was in 16 seasons. That was a massive rebuild, and there were a lot of down years in Johnny Majors' career that get forgotten about. But yeah, what Josh Heupel has done shouldn't be lost, no matter how ugly it was. We were talking about statistically one of the best runs that you could possibly have. Tops in the AP era, Heupel has been able to accomplish a road win, non-neutral side again, over a top 20 team in each of his first 2 seasons as a Vol. According to the Tennessee Sports Information Department, no coach has ever pulled off that feat in the AP era, which began in 1936. So that's some pretty strong love right there. That's pretty impressive to be able to win 2 games on the road against a top 20 opponent, Amanda, in your first 2 seasons, when theoretically you're probably rebuilding a program because that's why you're the coach and the other guy wasn't, is darn impressive and something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee fans should be really, really excited about Heupel. I think I've said that for a while now. He's a great coach. I mean, he's taking the program in the right direction, and I feel a lot of people say, well, we might not, he might not be better than Kirby. He might not be better than Saban. Well, you don't know that as of yet. I mean, you don't know that. There's a wide, future to head down. So if you can keep him here, keep him happy, then I think you've got something really special in Josh Heupel.
More numbers as it's brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Receiver Cedric Tillman against good opponents is very, very good. The senior has averaged 7.8 receptions, 135 yards, and a touchdown pass per game against ranked teams over the past 2 seasons. That includes matchups against number 1 Georgia, number 18 Kentucky, number 2 Alabama, and number 13 Ole Miss last season, as well as number 17. Big player steps up in big games. That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, he's NFL caliber. I think we've all known that. He's also bigger than he looks on television in
Yes.
real life. I think his stats are a little skewed as far as physicality. I think that he is bigger than what he's listed. He's heavier, he's taller. But he's NFL ready, and I think we'll really see his potential when he gets to the NFL.
I love the quote from Hendon Hooker that you can check out on offthehooksports.com on our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, please, and turn your notifications on so we can be a part of your day and give you tons and tons of Tennessee content. But I love the quote by Hooker. We talk about all X's and O's when we get all into it. And he said, I just looked over there and he was a lot bigger than the other guy. And so it ended up being kind of a button hook type of route, but the ball was going Tillman's way no matter the coverage. And the defensive back, Devonshire was his name, DJ Devonshire, was about 5'11". So you and I have stood next to Cedric Tillman. That's a mismatch. I'm about 5'11". I wouldn't be able to guard him either. As far as more on the rankings, Tennessee achieved its highest ranking in the AP poll since October the 14th, 2020, when the Vols were coming off a win against Missouri and were ranked number 14. Again, the Vols number 15 in the AP poll, number 16 in the USA Today coaches poll. And Tennessee has won more overtime games, according to Tennessee Sports Information Department, than any other team in the NCAA. They were tied with Arkansas before Saturday's game, and now they're 14-9. So they've won 14 overtime games. And the victory marked Tennessee's first road win over a top 20 non-conference opponent since defeating number 6 Miami in 2003. What do you remember, if anything, about that game, young lady?
I don't remember anything.
That was probably the best game that Philip Fulmer's ever coached. That was one of the most loaded teams that I have ever seen, and that was the I'm a soldier game. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember Kellen Winslow Jr. screaming, I'm a soldier, I'm a soldier? It was a long time ago. Gosh, a long time ago. But he continually repeated, I'm a soldier, and here we are at war, actually. And it did not play well with the masses. Let's just say that. And we all know what happened to Kellen Winslow Jr. since. So Tennessee, I think, should be very happy. Had a couple of days to marinate on that. I think Tennessee should be very pleased with the win, getting away with that victory. So, Amanda, I would like to phrase today's tough question around that, if we may, because I want to see a reset between what we heard Saturday night and if minds have changed as of today. So we were pretty straight up about it. We just asked on Saturday night after the game, and we'll be with you after each and every game. Today's tough question then was, are you concerned? So no, not at all. Ended up with 52.9%. And yes, very much, had 47.1%. So is there a way we can phrase it and kind of reassess where Tennessee's fan base is now that they're not in the immediate throes after almost getting upset on the road? I don't know if you've got a good way to phrase that, but whatever you come up with, I'm sure will be fantastic. Check out our friends at Craft Treats. If you have that pet that has anxiety because of storms or because of whatever the case may be, car rides too, and then arthritis. My dog's dealing with that a little bit, so very fortunate to have Craft Treats as a sponsor of this program and a fine partner that we are very, very proud of. So we'll go to the comment section for a moment as we put together today's tough question. Danny saying, I've no doubt Heupel will right the ship. And Orange Blood saying, not sure how to process all that overtime stat. I thought those are good overtime stats. The fun, but not stat wise. But I did. Amanda and I were talking about how long the game might last last week, and I was like, I don't really know. Typically 3 hours, somewhere in there. And I said, but you are talking to the guy who went down at the a Tennessee-Alabama 5 overtime game. So you could go down with 5 minutes left in the game. That's the college rule. The NFL rules, I believe, 2 minutes. But anyway, or vice versa. So I always would go down to the sideline to get a head start to the interviewer. And that game seemed to be in hand, that Tennessee was going to win that game. And then before I know it, it's a 5 overtime game. And it took well over an hour and 15 minutes. And Fat Dave's knees were not doing well whatsoever.
Fat Dave's knees.
So you ultimately don't know. So where are we going with today's tough question? And we'll put that out there.
So I'm going to say, like, after all the dust settled this weekend in college football, how are you feeling about Tennessee moving forward? Because I believe after that Kentucky-Florida game, which we haven't even talked about, Florida was upset by Kentucky, which 2 weeks ago wasn't an upset, was expected. The whole Florida train just kind of crashed into we have a good athlete at quarterback. We do not have a good quarterback. It's a difference.
With Florida.
Yeah. Yes, Florida. Florida's, and their defense is just god awful. And you have to remember, Kentucky didn't even have their starting running back this game. So it's just, I think after everyone saw that, maybe minds changed a little bit. Because before, last week when we were talking, everyone was like, oh, well, Florida's going to be another loss because look at what they did to Utah. But, I mean, after that, you have to see, with Tennessee's schedule coming up, how do you feel now? After watching everything else, how do you feel now?
So today's tough question, the final verdict on that is?
So after all the dust settled this weekend with Florida's loss to Kentucky, Alabama barely squeaking it by at Texas, how do you feel about Tennessee moving forward?
Okay, so what are our choices? How about very good, kind of bad?
It's gonna be like awful, not great, okay, and hyped.
I can go with that. I can definitely roll with that. Danny's saying I'm feeling optimistic. And Chris Landry is going to join us here momentarily. I want to visit with him about the pending coaching carousel, which is going to happen. Scott Frost fired at Nebraska. Tennessee fans, you dodged a bullet, because if Scott Frost hadn't have been talked into going to Nebraska and had gone and taken the Florida job, then Dan Mullen would have been your head coach at Tennessee, and you'd be in a way different place right now, because Dan Mullen has proven that he can work with quarterbacks, but he doesn't necessarily evaluate the right ones, or maybe he didn't even have one. But I think Tennessee dodged a bullet there. The other thing to look out for, if I'm Nebraska, the first person I'm calling and the second person I'm calling and the third person I'm calling is Mark Stoops and Mark Stoops and Mark Stoops, because I believe there are a lot of similarities in that program in that they don't have a lot of in-state talent. I think you have to develop players. Now, the question is, first of all, Nebraska has Trev Alberts as their athletic director. It's over. Former players, coaches, just stop. You're not qualified. It's a CEO type of positions. It's not just about hiring coaches. So I think Mark Stoops would be a great hire there, and I think that would be good for Tennessee, because what was once a gimme win, Amanda, is a challenging game each and every year.
If they can get Mark Stoops, go for it. I don't think it would be a good idea for Mark Stoops, in my opinion. I don't think it's a good move for him. But if you can do it, go for it. Do it. I offer Bill O'Brien to Nebraska. That is my offering. Here you are. Take him.
So confused by that. I thought he was a really good offensive mind, and now
Don't look like it.
No, now I've got real concerns. Pedigo Chattanooga, your locally owned store where you'll be treated like family. The region's foremost electric bike experts. They put their hearts into helping you find the perfect e-bike, and they are awesome. I had a ton of fun with them out in San Diego. I have a ton of fun with them in Chattanooga, so you should check it out. We would love for you to check out Pedigo at Chattanooga because it's a whole lot of fun. So Chris Landry coming up next, and I'm interested to see what he thinks of an early coaching carousel. By the way, do you know what happens if Trev Alberts waits till October the 1st? He saves several $1 million on Frost's buyout.
$7.1 million. He saved $7.1 million. So that to me, just coming from, a fan's perspective, it seems like they already got their guy.
Well, I do know this. That is exactly why Mike Hamilton pulled the trigger on Philip Fulmer during the season, because he was afraid he was going to lose Lane Kiffin to Washington. So did they already have their eye on somebody? I don't know. You would think you could tell that person, we're going to wait till after October the 1st to save $7 million. I mean, I understand getting a head start in November. I don't know that getting a head start in September does much for you in a coaching search, but we shall see. So coming up, Chris Landry will join us next. But how about Mr. Vols telling us about Big Orange Phillies, a great place to watch the games. It is awesome. Big Orange Phillies. Mr. Vols?
Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes, folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Dish Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus a complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, but Chattanooga goes to grill.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
All right, let's get to Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com. His appearance brought to you in part by our very good friend at the Mattress Place. Mattress Place is right there on Chapman Highway. It's just a couple of miles away from downtown. You're not going to realize how close it is. And no gimmicks, just 30 to 70% off each and every day. The Mattress Place, absolutely fantastic. So Chris Landry joins us now of LandryFootball.com. And Chris, always nice enough to share the time. And there's a lot to talk about now. No question about that, Chris. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Well, I'm doing well. Amanda's doing very well because as beautiful and gorgeous as she looks right now, she's getting ready to hit the beach here momentarily. So she's in Hilton Head. So she's doing way better than me.
Whoa. It's football season and we're hitting the beach? Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. Well, it's good to be the queen. We lost the queen this weekend, but we got a new queen. Wow. Well, congratulations and take pictures because as close as I'm going to see the beach. I'm not a beach guy anyway. Get me on a golf course, and I have too much time in the beach anyway on a golf course. So, same problem.
Yeah.
I have a feeling her husband David's going to work some golf in as well. So,
already today he's scheduled. He's going
golfing
at noon.
Oh, good.
yeah.
Well, we need to hook up with David then. I
Yes.
just need somebody to pull me out the golf course because I love being on the golf course. Don't have much time football season, but love the golf course.
Now let's break down Tennessee's game, and I want to get your thoughts on both sides of the ball. And I followed some of your tweets, so I have an idea roughly of what you think. But first, if you can take me back, because I said something before the break that I either wanted your verification on or correction. I think if Scott Frost goes to Florida and is not talked into going to Nebraska, that Dan Mullen goes to Tennessee. And we have a totally different crazy scenario than what we're dealing with on September the 12th, 2022. How wild is that?
Yeah, no, it is. And I'm making the assumption that Dan would have taken the Tennessee job. But I mean, that's who Tennessee's very interested in Dan Mullen, and that was the first an option before Josh. But or actually, I'm trying to think though. When was that? Was that anyway? Was that Jeremy? It might have been with Jeremy. I can't remember. But Dan was definitely somebody that Tennessee wanted. But then obviously they went to he went to Florida. So this is at the time. So he had that option. We don't know level of interest. Yeah, just crazy how it happens all the time. That you go back in history, it's happened, all of these different situations. I mean, I go back to how, Pat Dye wanted the Georgia job because Vince Dooley, after winning the national championship, was going to go back to Auburn when they fired Doug Barfield. Yeah, Pat Dye's from Georgia. So Pat Dye is at just quick story. So Pat Dye's at East Carolina, and Bo Ryan leaves North Carolina State. The great young hot coach leaves North Carolina State to go replace Charlie McClendon at LSU. And Bo Ryan tragically died in a plane crash, never coached a game at LSU. But when he left LSU, Pat Dye wanted the North Carolina State job. He wanted to leave East Carolina. And the board members, some of them were on the board of East Carolina and NC State, blocked it. So he got really ticked off and he left East Carolina and went to Wyoming. He'd never signed his contract at Wyoming, coached there 1 year. And then that's when Vince Dooley and Herschel Walker, they won the national championship at Georgia. Well, Auburn had fired Doug Barfield, and they were going to hire the former Auburn player, Vince Dooley, from Georgia, and it was close to happening. It wasn't the big media, we have today, and it was going down. So Pat Dye, when he tried to get in quickly on the Georgia job, Pat Dye, of course, played at Georgia, played with Fran Tarkenton and back in those days. So that's where it was headed. Well, then, all of a sudden, Vince Dooley says, look, I got a great team at Georgia. I'm going to stay at Georgia, even though Auburn's my alma mater. And so Pat Dye reverses course and says, well, I'd be interested in the Georgia job. And he convinced those guys, and the rest is history. I mean, Bear Bryant was headed to Arkansas to be the football coach. He was an assistant at Vanderbilt. He had actually taken the job. He had agreed verbally to take the job. 2 days later, Pearl Harbor breaks out. And it never happened. And nothing, the whole world changed, and coaches were going to fight and all that. So,
wow,
you never know what's going to happen. Now, go back into the current state. It's a lot of this, it's all played out publicly in a lot of cases. So, yeah, it could have been. And, everybody thought the perfect match was Scott Frost in Nebraska. And what an unmitigated disaster that was. And it just goes to show you that things aren't always what they seem. And sometimes it's the administration. Sometimes it's making those bad decisions. And that's led to that. But, yeah, what could have been. And, folks are just thrilled in Knoxville that they got Josh Heupel. And, things have worked well off of a long series of what can be considered football-type disasters. But I think he's doing it because it's exciting and, he's winning, but still got a long way to go. A great win. I know we want to get into him. A great win because you go on the road, you get a win. Any win is great. But there are a lot of things to clean up and a lot of things going forward that will allow them to win some games in the SEC, but not as many as maybe their fans think. but it's about getting better. You never stay the same. So it's not about, again, you're not defined week 1 or week 2. You're defined on how much you get better, because that's going to determine, in a relative sense for everybody, how things are going to play out during the year.
So I want to get to your X's and O's breakdown of the Tennessee game. And I know Amanda wants to jump in there. So, but I do want to ask you about Mark Stoops. Do you think he would entertain the Nebraska job? Because I look back at Philip Fulmer and the run he had, and the run that Johnny Majors even had in the late 80s. Well, not that 0-6 season, but the early 90s. And at the times that they had their best runs, Kentucky and Vanderbilt were gimmies. And Kentucky's not a gimme anymore. So it would certainly help Tennessee, I would think, if Mark Stoops went elsewhere, because history would indicate, other than Bear Bryant and Mark Stoops, you're not going to have success at Kentucky playing football.
Well, I think there's a lot of merit to what you say. I don't know that Mark agrees with that, but here's the thing. From his standpoint,
right?
He sees it as, I built this as a great job. And here's the thing about it is, I think this is what's going to get him to get disenchanted with Kentucky, if he does. I'm not saying he will. And this is just kind of irks me. It's when the people start to say, well, that's great, winning 9-10 games a year at Kentucky, but when are you going to win the conference? You don't. Winning 9 and 10 games at Kentucky is like going to the national playoffs and getting into the championship game. That's winning at Kentucky. I think as long as they understand that we got it good here, it's great. I think he could be happy. Let me just tell you this. He turned down Florida State, Cole, and he coached at Florida State.
Wow.
But he knew that Florida State, facilities, fundraising was a problem when Jimbo was there. And so he told him, he says, I got a better job at Kentucky and I got better facilities. Those Youngstown guys, they are blunt. They will just call it like it is. There is no filter. And, Bo Pelini, Bob Stoops, Mark Stoops, Mike Stoops, all those Youngstown guys.
But
I say that affection.
For those that don't know, Youngstown,
Ohio. Yeah, those Youngstown, Ohio guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Look, he played at Iowa. I've often wondered, would he go to Iowa if Kurt Ferentz retires? Because that's his alma mater. I don't think he would go to the I don't think he'd take the Nebraska job. To answer the question there, I don't think he would do that. I think he would leave Kentucky for one of those elite jobs. But I think he sees Kentucky as a really good job. And I think you have to be careful to take a jump like Kentucky to Nebraska, if that, unless he is something about Mark that I don't know, and we've never talked about his dying love for Nebraska or something. I just think that, I think his next step is to go to a bigger time job. I think he was on the list, by the way, down the list at LSU. Had they struck out, and I think he would have taken that job. But, it never got to that for LSU. I think he'd take one of those kind of the prime jobs, in the right situation that he was comfortable with. But he's one of those guys that has to be the right situation, and he has to jive with the right people, because if he doesn't like them, they're not going to like him. Florida State, by the time they got out of that interview, Florida State didn't want him, and he didn't want them. He just that's kind of how it played out.
So I want to get to the Tennessee game, Tennessee Pitt, Johnny Majors Classic, real quick. And I'm just going to ask you a broad general question. So what were your thoughts about the game? What did you see that Tennessee did very well in? What did you see that they lacked in? Just give me a general recap from a college football genius mind.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I do. I'm back. I second that vote for the Chris Landry's genius.
I think what probably impressed me the most was how resourceful they were. I don't think their 4-man pressures were very good. They ratcheted up their pressures. They brought blitz pressure. They brought it from different angles. They got pressure, and they manufacture it, which can be dangerous on the back end. But Pitt, left some plays on the field, and they weren't real effective throwing it, and they got enough pressure to mitigate some of the potential coverage problems. Did a good job defensively. Offensively, they didn't run the football very well. I mean, they didn't have a good game there, but they made enough big plays. And, the one thing I kept thinking about in this game was they might lose this game because they can't score enough points. I mean, the defense is going to, how ironic is that? Because I'm thinking, well, but they were resourceful enough to get it done with the defense, with the passing game. And look, the defense came up big. They only to 10 points after the first quarter. It's really, really impressive. And those points came up on short fields after making mistakes. So clean up those mistakes. So when I look at it, and I think people, you listeners, need to understand this, that maybe are new to me, that this is the coach that comes out of me. It's critiquing is not criticizing. It's coaching. It's always, well, we've got, everybody are results oriented. They won, everything is great. Now, had they lost, it would be the sky is falling. I mean, it's just all of those things. It's about what you can do to get better. Now, so all those things were really good. Going to need to run the football better. And you're going to have, and their offensive line did not play very well, but they went up against a very good defensive line, even though Pitt was shorthanded. I wonder if Pitt has their quarterback for 4 quarters, if it certainly would have been tougher for Tennessee to get some stops defensively, and maybe it'd have been the difference. Ifs, they won the game, they deserved the game, they outplayed, that's it. But I'm looking forward to, I think Josh is probably thrilled that his team won with defense. They showed some mental toughness, resiliency when they didn't have their best in one area, and they were able to be good enough in all 3 facets, even with the mistakes, to build up on it. So pretty good. I mean, I thought the quarterback play was good. I thought the running back play was poor. I thought the receivers did a good job. I thought the offensive line, again, against a really good group, they struggled. They gave up 13 pressures in this game. Look, that's a really good defensive line that Pitt has. Again, I'm going to say that again for the 3rd time, but they're going to see good defensive fronts in the SEC, and it's about playing better. So I think defensive line thought they did a really good job. Again, their base pressure, their 4-man pressures weren't quite ideal. And why is that important? Well, it doesn't matter as long as you get pressure. No, it does, because if you can get base pressure, then you got maximum guys in coverage, and better, quarterbacks can have success. I thought the linebackers were pretty good. I thought the secondary, when they got pressure, obviously was pretty good. Special teams was poor. Those are things you got to clean up going forward. But look, you go on the road, you beat a good opponent. Your second week, you got to improve like everybody else has to improve. I think the staff should be proud, pleased on the good things. And yet there's some things to work on and to get better, and say we got a lot of growth room, and we're going to need it going into the league.
Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com. Check out that site. You'll know more about football than any of your friends. Chris's appearance brought to you in part by Owl's Nest Barbecue. Owl's Nest Barbecue has all the barbecue supplies you need, which includes, they've got the sauces, they've got the rubs, they've got the pellets, they've got the wood chips, they've got it all right there at Owl's Nest Barbecue. So, Chris, what did Pitt do schematically to kind of throw Tennessee off schedule early? Because down 10-0, Tennessee scored more points than anybody in the nation in the first quarter of last year. That to me was a little bit of a surprise. Did they do anything different, or were they just that good? You've alluded to how good the defensive line is. Yeah. I totally agree with you. But did they do something different schematically that surprised the Vols?
Not a whole lot. I mean, they changed their coverages a little bit early, but the main thing was the pressure. They took away the run, and it forced Tennessee to kind of be one-dimensional. And again, to Tennessee's credit, they were able to get enough done without the run game to be successful. So when you can make a team a little one-dimensional, it makes it difficult. So, and this is why it's important, is because all of a sudden you miss a throw, you drop a pass or whatever, you have some stalls. I thought it was the job that they did defending the run. I thought the defensive line play of Pitt was the big thing. It wasn't a whole lot schematically. They studied their front a little bit, which is they moved pre-snap a little bit, but you can't do a whole lot when you're going, kind of Tennessee's tempo. So it wasn't really scheme that was the difference. It was a play up front that was the difference, with some adjustments coverage-wise that they did. Playing some spy looks and playing some false looks back there where they'll show too deep and then they'll bring a guy down. But that's what they did. They really took away the run, and they created some problems, forced Tennessee to win it with mainly the passing game. And, they did that. Now, let me just tell you, that was the reason why, as you alluded to, and I'm assuming this is what you're talking about, there are a lot of there's some missed throws. There's overthrows. Well, a little pressure induced, you miss them, and that's kind of, you stop the defensively. I don't care who you are. You have to stop the run. If you don't stop anybody's run, anybody, anywhere, anytime, any level, you got no chance. Because the easiest thing to do is to hand the ball off, run it. You can't stop it. You got no answers. You're dead. So even if you got to do extra things to stop the run, it starts there. You got a shot of maybe the quarterback throwing a bad throw, the receiver dropping it. You got a chance if you stop the run and they've got to throw them. You got a chance of winning. You have no chance of winning if you can't stop the run. So Pitt just did it, and they did it with a lot of base front, so they didn't have to put extra numbers to stop the run. And then that caused a little bit of problems, some narrow throwing windows for Hooker, and he missed some throws. There's no question. The other thing, I'm going to go back to it, and I saw this, and I said this after Ball State, and I mentioned it for a reason, because it didn't have anything to do with the outcome of that game. They still don't do a great job of working the middle of the field in the passing game. They consistently go with that fade stop, that back shoulder, where, I don't know if you guys remember, I mentioned it last week, running the red line. We call that in practice. In practice, you put that red line, which is 5-6 yards from the boundary, and your receiver has to run that and not allow the defender to move them off it, because that creates space, 5-yard space for the quarterback to drop the ball in. If the defender runs, there's a couple of throws, it's like there's no chance you can keep your feet in, even if it's a perfect. They're not running that effectively enough, and they're not taking advantage of, I think, some opportunities in the middle of the field. Now, against split safeties, you don't want to do that, work the middle of the field, but I know a lot of it was they couldn't run the football well enough to move a safety in the box to create more space. But two things, if you're going to run that route, you got to run it better than you're running it. And for all they just, there's no way. It's like trying to, it's like trying to hit, speaking of golf, trying to hit a 100-yard shot, as opposed to a 3-foot putt. It's just hard. It's just, the key to success, if you're going to run that, is you've got to run it correctly. And your receivers have to stay on that, proverbial line, that imaginary line in the game, of course. And they don't do a very good job of that. When they do, that's when that play is let's use this analogy, is a slam dunk. It's an easy throw, but they're inconsistent with that. Give some credit to Pitt for being physical, but that's what you're going to do. That's going to be a staple. You better do it better than they're doing it against better secondaries. That's for certain.
So what do you think that Tennessee did, or why do you think they came out with the W in this game? What about them? Was it the coaching? Was it just better players? What made them win versus Pitt? Because it could have gone either way, as we saw.
I think the defense of Tennessee stop the run, and Pitt didn't have enough in the passing game. We talked about going into the game. Pitt's going to run the football. That's what they want to try to do. And I thought the defense stepped up, and they didn't allow Pitt's running game. Pitt's running game would have got on, and they win this game. It's the ability to stop the run. So Tennessee, who didn't run the football well, made more plays in the passing game. Pitt could not, and that was the difference. Now, why is that? Well, you stop the run, and you got good pressure. You got a lot of pressure on Pitt's quarterback, the starter, and the backup, and I thought they did a really good job. Again, I thought there were opportunities for Pitt to make some plays in the passing game. They either missed them or they didn't have time, and that's for Tennessee's credit. They knew that, and I think they felt like they wouldn't say this publicly, I don't think, but they felt like they probably wouldn't be able to cover well enough if they didn't get pressure home. So Tennessee was able to make plays in the passing game when they couldn't run it as effectively as they had liked. Pitt could not. And so credit those things. Those are the things that their defensive pressure to force Pitt's inability to make plays in the passing game and defend the run to start off with. That's the difference in the game. It was sloppy special teams. They some other things that they did that could have cost them the game. But one of the good things you like about it is you don't like those things. You're chasing perfection and you never get it, but you got to try to. It's just the way they were resilient. So the overall thing, resiliency. But hopefully I gave some specifics as to what those resiliency allowed to. Stop the run. We got to throw the football a little bit more effectively. They did. And we got pressure on Pitt after stopping the run, and they couldn't make plays. We're a better team. We get out with a win on the road. And look, that's why it was the way it was. If they had been Tennessee been able to run the football a little bit better, Tennessee probably wins the game more decisively.
Chris, what did you make of that? Before we let you out of here, what did you make of that Alabama game? Did Steve Sarkisian do anything special? And why in the world is an Alabama team that's really veteran make so many mistakes and so many penalties?
That's a question that I can't quite answer. In that it's the most penalties an Alabama team has had in the Nick Saban era. In fact, it broke that record with about 12 minutes left to go in the game. So it was the most mistake-prone game that Alabama's had. It reverts to a couple of things, and this is going to sound a little, like you've heard this before. Somewhere along the line, Alabama's offensive line has regressed to the point because they've become so pass happy. They don't run block very well. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't come off the ball. And so this is what happens. You want to know why that makes mistakes. It's on this because they were doing a poor job. And when you're doing a poor job, you get antsy. You try to get a jump. And so you make a mistake and you got a penalty and you got another one and you got another. And that's so when you're struggling to execute certain things, it leads to mistakes, penalties. Alabama, they couldn't run it. And then at some point they stopped trying to run it. It's not going to work. I mean, they're going to have a great season, but they're not going to win the national championship if they can't play better. Now, they struggled with the offensive line last year, but they got a little bit better and they won the conference championship. So I have full confidence that they're going to figure some things out. But here's the other thing is, so, well, why aren't they good? Well, because they don't do it enough in practice, and they gave up on it in the game because they were concerned that they couldn't run it and they need to throw it, and we're going to put it in the hands of Bryce Young, and they were able to win the game. So going forward, the whole key is, to me, it's offensive line play. The defense is on the field way too much. Sark did a great job game planning, knowing how to attack. They neutralized Will Anderson to a great degree because what they did is they, in some cases, didn't even block him. They ran away from him. They ran right at him. So you can't rush the passer if you got to defend the run first. So it was a great scheme. Sark had his team ready to play. But Alabama's play up front in the offensive line wasn't really good. That's not – if Alabama's not being able to run the football is not what's going to allow them to be successful at their level. They're going to win games in the league, but they're going to have some challenges like they did last year. Let's remind folks, they couldn't block Texas A&M. It cost them the game. They still could have won the game. They had drop balls and all that. But a lot of those mistakes – which are not just penalties, but other things, drop balls and what have you. The other thing that I noticed, the receivers could not get open. So there's offensive line problems and the receivers' inability to get open. Bryce Young is holding the ball too long. So now you got pass protection problems because he's holding the ball, wait for receivers to get open. So those are two things that they've got to get better. It's not like this is what they are. Oh, my goodness, look out the tide. It's over. They're going to go 8-4. No, it's not what's going to happen. But they got a ways to go, and they certainly don't look like the best team in the country right now. But you don't have to be right now. You have to win games, and you have to get better. And we'll see what they're going to be 4 or 5 weeks from now. Because I tell you, middle of last season, I gave them very little chance to beat Georgia, and they beat them in the conference championship game. So I'm just saying that they're just not right now what they need to be. And I think they know that, so that's I kidded. I'll tell you this. I talked briefly to Nick yesterday morning. He was coming back from church. He said, Mama, what do you think? So, boy, you certainly get soft on the offensive line. I won't tell you what he said in response, but because he was coming back from church, I started to tell him, well, you need to make a U-turn and go back to church. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, no, that's just not. That is not something that he sees acceptable, but that's in a nutshell what happened. How about Texas A&M? How about that?
Yes.
How about that? What an embarrassment that was for them. And Appalachian State's really good, but that's another team that they can't find their quarterback. Look, it is fun to watch teams. I don't like teams struggling. I don't mean that, but it's fun to watch that. It's a work in progress, and it's an interesting thing, isn't it, that one loss can ruin your season. For A&M, in their eyes, their fan base, the delusional ones that thought that they were a playoff team, which they were not, they're now like the sky is falling. And I didn't think they'd lose to Appalachian State, but I thought they'd probably, be 9-3, 8-4. And that's kind of it's an interesting dynamic that, people are, we just talked it early. Nebraska just fired one of their own, and it's 3 weeks into the season. We're off and running, folks. It's a lot of panic, but there's a lot of improvements. And to me, what makes the great teams great is that how much you get better. And I'm curious to see the progression of some of these teams, or in some cases, the regression.
Chris, we will speak to you soon. Go to LandryFootball.com. I appreciate the time, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me. Take care. Y'all have a great week. Talk to you later in the week.
Thank you, Chris. So I want to remind
you
that Zool Beer is the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports. Go to Zoolbeer.com. That's Zoolbeer.com. XUL, Zoolbeer.com. Worldwide award-winning beer and a fantastic panoramic view of downtown that you can go hang out and have a really good time. How about Tennessee center Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren coming up, Tennessee tight end, and also winners and losers from the SEC. More after this, back in 2 minutes.
Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Bassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Bassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Rain. I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ottawa. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do, and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
She's Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Winners and losers of the SEC. We'll get to that here momentarily, a Monday staple. We're with you each and every weekday at 8:30. And don't forget our YouTube channel. Go to offthehooksports.com for great coverage. But the YouTube channel, pretty proud of it. We are going to have a new feature that's going to be called the Volunteer Vault. And it kind of piqued my interest when we had Heath Schuler on. Two
new features. Two new features.
Yes, and we have Caleb's checkdowns as well. So, so we've got a lot going on. Check out the channel. We already want to tell you we certainly appreciate the support, and that leads me to please hit that like and subscribe button as we get to winners and losers of the SEC. So as we look back over the weekend, should I take Texas A&M just out of the equation because they are the biggest losers of the SEC?
I don't want to take them out of the equation. I want to talk about them. I love it. I love it.
It really is not even close. They are the biggest. Even if Tennessee had lost on the road against Pitt, still to lose to Appy State at home is in a whole different ballpark. They're the biggest losers of the SEC. Your thoughts?
They're definitely the biggest losers of the SEC. And not only is it because they lost to App State, and I get it, App State's not a bad program. Granted, North Carolina was able to beat them and put up just ungodly amount of points. So for Texas A&M to be so bad that they only put up 14 points against App State, first of all, that's not great news. But second of all, they are unrealistic with their expectations. You know, you have Alabama fans who expect to go to the playoffs because they've been there. Texas A&M thinks that they are a national contender, and they're not. They're just not. They're completely unrealistic. And they had this yell leader thing that's going around now on Twitter where they just dogged App State before the game. And I guess it's some traditional thing that they do with every school. But now that's come out, and it just looks awful. And they paid App State $1.5 million. And App State's trolling them on Twitter going, thanks for the 1.5 mil. Like,
yeah,
you couldn't be a bigger loser than Texas A&M. You just couldn't.
So who's the second biggest loser before we get to the winners of the weekend? This might sit unpopular with you, but I'm actually going to go with Alabama, even though they pulled out the win. And here's why. I just didn't expect a sloppy game out of a veteran group coached by Nick Saban. And based off what Chris Landry said earlier, I rely on him a lot, and he still thinks that the offensive line maybe is affected by being too pass happy. But the thing he said that really stood out to me, the receivers were struggling to get open. Last year, barring injury, before injury, they had the two best receivers in the nation, and it wasn't even close. So when I hear things like that, it makes me wonder if they can top Georgia, which we all think that's going to be the eventual matchup. But man, all of those penalties, Amanda, to break that record under Nick Saban with 12 minutes left in the game. I don't want to overstate it, but if I'm an Alabama fan on September 12th, I'm a lot closer to very concerned than everything will be okay, because the standard is to win a championship. It's not to win 10 or 11 games.
Well, yes, but that's for people to think that that should be the standard every season, and it is at Alabama, and it's because Nick Saban spoiled the crap out of everybody. But that's if you don't make it to the national championship, that shouldn't be like the end of, college football as we know it. This is an unheard of era, with Nick Saban, and it's not one that doesn't feel too bad from an Alabama fan's perspective. However, there's nothing for them to fear, really, nothing. They're bringing back two of their wide receivers who have been absent since preseason because of injuries. They're both coming back next weekend. So that's a possible answer to a question of, drop balls and all that stuff. It just looked like a sloppy game. And if you watch Alabama football every year, there is a game that it all comes to a head. Like, it starts looking bad and it slowly goes downhill. And then there's one game where they lose and then they pick up and go back on. Maybe this is the wake-up call that they needed, and it's early in the season. So quite possibly this is, everything will be fine after this.
Winners and losers in the SEC. I'm not going to knock Florida for losing to Kentucky because I think Kentucky's really good. As Amanda pointed out, we don't really know how good Utah is, so who Florida beat the week before. So I look at, or Utah State, excuse me. I look at this game. Utah, excuse me. So I look at the Kentucky-Florida game. I don't know if there's a big winner or a big loser here. This game kind of played out the way I thought it would. As far as some other games, I really think the big winner out of the weekend was Tennessee. I mean, to be able to survive and on the road against a ranked team, I think that is your big winner in the SEC. Now, I'm not saying it was perfect, and I know a lot of people wanted it to be a blowout and were excited about that, and that probably should have happened, but Tennessee made a lot of mistakes and got out of there with the victory, and I just think there's something to be said for that. Much like you referred to Alabama, I think there's something to be said for winning a game ugly early in the game. A lot of times it pulls you together, and that could happen for Tennessee. It could happen for Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big difference in winning. And I think you mean winning the game early in the season, like an ugly game early in the season.
Right.
So I'm going to go back a little bit with the winners and losers. I would not put Alabama in the losers bracket because I don't see how you put somebody who wins a game in a losers bracket. It doesn't matter the expectations. And like we've talked about, preseason rankings mean absolutely nothing. Not that they're not talented and not that everyone's not expecting them to win this season, but it means absolutely nothing. So if you win the game, you're never going to be put in the loser's position, just from where I'm coming from. Now, Florida, I would definitely put in the loser's position, and I would put them or South Carolina tied at 2, like the greatest loser in the SEC this weekend. And that's because they have been exposed. They can't stop anybody. Their defense can't stop the run. They are very suspect on coverage as far as, downfield play. Their quarterback is not a quarterback. He's an athlete. He's a great athlete. He's fast. He's everything that you looked for in like a Johnny Manziel type, except he's not as good. He can't hit anybody. He can't throw. He doesn't make great decisions. I'm not trying to burn on the kid, but it's the NIL now. So you're a professional athlete. So yes, as far as the quarterback position is concerned, I think the rumors before the season started with, is Anthony Richardson the guy? Is Billy Napier really behind him? No, he's not the guy.
I think that both of our picks, to some extent, reveal our expectations of the teams going in. You were higher on South Carolina than I was, so I really wasn't surprised to see Arkansas handle them the way they did, because I just wasn't as high on South Carolina before the season.
I was low on Arkansas. I wasn't necessarily high on South Carolina. I was just low on Arkansas. I didn't think Arkansas really had it.
Yeah, they're just going to be a physical team that people aren't going to like to play, and I think that tests your mettle pretty quickly in a game. And the reason I put Alabama in there as a loser, even though they won, is I look at Alabama's roster and I see one of the top 2 rosters in the nation. I look at Nick Saban and I think a guy whose team's not going to make a lot of mistakes. So did they win the game? Absolutely. And kudos to them for showing the moxie to get through it. I don't mean it to sound like I'm throwing shade their way, but I come away from it. I come away from it thinking that team is not nearly as good as I thought they were. Now, in a month, we could be having a totally different conversation, but that's why winners and losers from the weekend, I would say Alabama even in a win, which I rarely do. And it's the way it was the way they barely won, which stood out to me. But again, they could completely bounce back and win a national title. It wouldn't stun me at all. I don't pick Georgia as necessarily a winner of the weekend because they're just darn good and they weren't playing anybody.
But they only won by, I'm not saying they only won by 33, but when you look at what they did against Oregon, you automatically think they're coming out and putting, 60 points on the board against a no-name. I can't even remember who they played. Samford, yes, Samford, who I don't even know if you can find a picture of their quarterback. But you're seeing Samford and you're going, okay, 65 points on the board, and they only put up 33. So it was surprising to me, and I don't think anybody, except if you're a diehard Georgia fan, watched that game.
No, definitely not. Winners and losers of the SEC, a Monday staple that we'll have here on Off the Hook Sports with Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Please hit that subscribe and like button. Turn your notifications on so we can bring you more content that we believe that you will enjoy. Vols Automotive Group will give you an enjoyable car or a very functional one, depending on what you need. They have a great selection there on Callahan Drive. Vols Automotive Group is absolutely unbelievable because they know that your business is the key and they want to make sure you're happy. So Vols Automotive Group on Callahan. And if you're already making plans for the weekend, depending on when you're watching this, I would highly encourage you to go to Big Orange Phillies. Big Orange Phillies, they're on Maynardville Pike, is in North Knoxville. It's easy to get to from the Halls and Powell area. And if you're coming south, it's easy to get to if you're up there in Maynardville. So check out Big Orange Phillies. Amanda, I promised that we would get to a couple of interviews that we had over the weekend with Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren. So I want to play a couple of clips of those. I want to remind you that these are on the YouTube channel, so you can go listen to it. A couple of grand of you already have, and I appreciate that. That's why we need you to hit that like and subscribe button. So Jacob Warren and a quick one just discussed the way they came out in the first half, and that's just not who Tennessee is.
That's right. Like they're up 10-0, whatever. There you go, up 17, whatever. Like, this isn't us. This is not our ball. This is not how we play. So let's figure out how we can get back to that. And then we're all completely confident that once we start clicking, start making adjustments and start just playing the right way, that we'll be just fine. And so that was kind of the message on the sideline. Like, dude, like, don't get discouraged. We're literally playing the worst that we can play. And you know what I mean? Like, it's 10-0, right? Like, it's not out of hand yet. So obviously it's I don't know. I don't want to say nerve-wracking or whatever, but just having the understanding that, yeah, man, like this is not us, and we're gonna go, and we're gonna get it right, and we're gonna like come back, right? We really weren't down that much, but just knowing we'd figure it out.
Jacob's appearance brought to you by Bassey Lawn and Garden, and then Cooper Mays talking about when a player makes a mistake, how do you handle that? And I can tell you that from visiting with Jacob, that Trayvon Flowers on the punt return that he fumbled in the fourth quarter that kept Pitt in the game was incredibly emotional. Not only was he emotional with the fact that he almost lost the game for Tennessee with that play, but he was emotional by the fact that he was able to register a sack in overtime and help get Tennessee back in the win column. So it was a little bit of both. Tennessee could have still won, talking to Jacob Warren, Tennessee could have still won had Trayvon Flowers not made that play, but Trayvon just felt a lot of emotions because he helped Tennessee bring a game back that he put in serious jeopardy. But Cooper Mays, Tennessee center, talks about players making mistakes and how you got to bounce back and what you got to do. How does this team react when somebody makes a mistake? How important is it to support a teammate when they make a mistake? In particular, I'm thinking of Trayvon Flowers because Jacob had made mention that he was pretty emotional after the game and was so happy to not only pull it out, but make a big play. Supporting each other, how important is that?
Yeah, it's huge, honestly. I mean, we're all out there on the same team. We're all trying to get the same thing done. I promise you, nobody goes out there on the field and thinks like, oh, I'm going to mess this play up or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you got to have grace. It's a bunch of 19 to 21-year-old kids out there, you know, making full speed decisions. And sometimes it just doesn't go your way. And let's also remind ourselves that the other team is also on scholarship. Like they were recruited as well to beat us. You know what I'm saying? Everybody gets beat every few plays, every now and again. It's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then the person you're playing is probably not up to par with who you are. So just keep that in mind. Probably that's what I would say.
I would agree with that. I think fans of all schools think that their team is good and all other teams are evil. That's not really the case. As far as what they did defensively, how different or similar was it to what Ball State did the week before, who was really just doing their best to keep things in front of them?
Yeah, completely different. Pitt is one of those teams that I was talking about probably in previous episodes that, you know, they like their guys. They like what they do. They know their scheme. And like I said, last time they beat us with it. So you don't really you don't fix what's not broken. So they did something completely different. They ran 4 down, trusted their DBs to make plays. And that's probably why we threw it a little bit more instead of going to the run. But yeah, completely different is what I would say.
Cooper Mays' appearance brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. It's all about integrity. CityHeatandAir.com. They've been in business for over 50 years, and there's a reason why, because they will take care of your HVAC unit. It is absolutely awesome, and they're not going to make you any sort of promises they don't keep. That's City Heating and Air Conditioning. So some message board bingo. Who can beat us? Message board bingo is where I look stupid, which my wife would say that's like 5 o'clock in the morning until midnight. And so we'll just leave that there. But
wait. Who can beat us? There's no us.
Oh, who can beat me? You know
there
the
you
answers.
Go.
So
I know the answers. I give them.
Alex Trebek. Yeah. So
yeah. Oh, can we revisit today's tough question first so we can see how Tennessee fans are feeling?
Yes, where are we on that?
Okay. So after all the dust settled this weekend in the SEC with Florida's loss to Kentucky and Alabama barely squeaking by Texas, how do you feel about the Vols going forward? So we had 4 options: awful, not great, meh, okay, very excited. Those are your 4 options. So 51% of Tennessee fans feel meh, okay. But then 43% feel very excited. No one feels awful, and very few people feel not great. So seems like opinions have changed.
I thought they would from Saturday night.
Yep.
Couple
Agreed.
of libations, a closer game than you thought, and you're ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
No babies. Keep your babies.
And now suddenly you're thinking maybe pull the baby out of the tub before you throw the bathwater out. So, again, big picture, even if you didn't watch the game, if you were in Alaska polar bear hunting, the big picture is
you're not allowed to polar bear hunt because they're like endangered.
But if you're out hunting bald eagles, don't do that either. If you're out hunting, whatever, and you're lost and you're away from everything, and you come back to your screen, phone, whatever it may be, and you see that Tennessee beat a ranked opponent on the road in overtime, and you're a Tennessee fan, you should be happy. This is not a program that's at the point of a Georgia or Alabama where things are a given. As a matter of fact, those are the only two schools in the SEC where you would think things are a given, and even they're not always a given.
No, they're not always a given at all. Like, I mean, look at this past weekend. My God, they're not a given, But I was most impressed with Tennessee beating Pitt in the fashion that they beat them, and it was only in one overtime. You go on the road and you go into, an overtime. More than likely, you're going to lose if you're the visiting team. I mean, that's why people try to go on the road and get out of there by a 2-point conversion or field goal or whatever to just get out during regulation.
I agree with that. Something that might surprise you, though, if people go to the YouTube channel and watch the Jacob Warren video that we had brought to you by, of course, Vassy Lawn and Garden, he thought they were going to go for 2 at the end of regulation. That's surprising.
That didn't surprise me. Most teams try to do that. We saw Titans Giants last night, and Giants did that.
Well, I mean, you thought Pitt would go for 2 at the end of regulation.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I thought about it at first. I was like, well, you're at home, but with a backup quarterback, I didn't say it at the time, so I don't believe in hindsight 2020, but probably the better decision is to go for 2 right there.
And not if you don't trust it. I mean, if you don't trust it, and Pitt didn't trust it, obviously, it's not, not going for 2. And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Tennessee stand them up like at the goal line or like at 1 yard, like 3 times or something like that? So going for 2 in that situation, it seems stupid. Tie the game. If you're Pitt, you tie the game and you take it into overtime. You're at home. Your likelihood of winning is increased.
I would agree.
That's just my feeling.
I would agree with you 99% of the time, and probably still do. But with a backup quarterback and what Tennessee has offensively on the other side, it would be a much stronger consideration than otherwise.
But if he can't pull it off, you lose.
You always have those 2 or 3 of those gotta have them plays that are near the goal line. Usually they're saved for overtime, and you usually have 2 or 3 of those. And I would think you would have one that you could pull out and feel comfortable with. But maybe Matt Patty, the backup quarterback, who I love his name. It reminds me of the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Maybe he didn't have a good enough knowledge base of what they could do in overtime. I don't know. Jacob brought it up, and that on the sideline, they wondered aloud if they would go for 2. And I thought that was very intriguing. All right, message board bingo, because we're cruising through, and we want to get to this message board bingo. You read out the message board post, and then I will try to answer it. And if you can beat me, then I'm going to hook you up with a shirt. How sweet is that? So message board bingo is now. It's okay.
Yeah. So this Coach just has a loser's way about him. He doesn't seem to have a lot of fight in him. I question if he truly cares that much. Might be able to drop a good dad joke or two during practice, but he just has zero fire. All the greats have some kind of passion. He's lacking. This is a Big Ten school.
Big Ten school.
Big Ten.
Lacking passion. I mean, it wouldn't be Michigan, it wouldn't be Ohio State. Okay, well, I'll go with Ohio State then. Shrine Day have passion. I don't know who it is.
Surprisingly, for the first time ever, it is Wisconsin.
It is Wisconsin. Oh, yeah, upset loss there. Jason said Nebraska. That would have been a very good guess as well. So I'm 0-1. Message board bingo rolls on.
Who else is in trouble with their women? Silent treatment since yesterday evening. I didn't handle the loss very well. She also got mad that I posted on Facebook about how much we suck since I was obviously drunk. I hadn't posted since last season. Maybe the people love my excitement. Still silent treatment today, reading through my texts and all of the stuff I said, all the stupid stuff I said to people. Anybody in the same boat?
Wowzers. I'm going to say that is a message board post on a Texas A&M board.
Yes, it is.
No, 1-1. Fill in the flow with circular. All right, here we go. Third one. Can I finish with a winning record?
All right. Dumb blank schools, most of them. Transform overnight due to the portal. Look at Southern California. If you can spell your name, you can transfer there. Let's face it, our school closed the gap, but never all the way, and now pretty much will never do it. The run from 2017 to 2021 will be the standard from here on out.
First of all, I can tell you say Southern California. If you can spell your name, you get it. Well, I can tell you firsthand that is not the case.
I think it's different for athletes. I think, and that's true.
Oh, yeah. Well,
for everywhere.
My son's athletic, but he doesn't play football. I will say that was an Oklahoma fan.
That's a good guess.
But it wasn't.
But
right.
No.
What do we get?
Notre Dame.
They're
gotta blame it on somebody else.
I mean, the weird part about it being Notre Dame is the academic requirements are actually, I believe, tougher at Southern California. It's one of the toughest in the nation. And they're not easy, Notre Dame. So I've learned more than I ever wanted to know about this recently because my son's going through this process, that some schools value like community service and that sort of thing. Other schools will value having a job and, in addition to school. Basically, every school wants you to work like 80 hours a week as a 18 to 19 or a 16 to 17-year-old. My son happens to be a little bit older, but anyway, so this day in sports history, Amanda, anything exciting happened on this day in sports history?
There's a lot.
I did see that Jesse Owens was listed as having his birthday lived from 1913 to 1980. Of all the sporting events that you could be at, how cool would that one be to be at the Olympics when Hitler thinks so poorly of African Americans and thinks he's got this better race of people, and Jesse Owens just shows him up right there in the middle of the Olympics, and Adolf Hitler gets up and leaves during the middle of it. Of all the sporting events you could be at, how fun would the uncomfortability be of that moment in Berlin?
Well, going back, it would have been fun, but if you had, hindsight, you'd be like, maybe let's take that guy out right now. Like, maybe we should just go ahead and, take out Hitler. But, that's just me, I don't know.
Well, and, I don't want to go out on a limb here, but, that Hitler seems like a bad dude.
Possibly. I mean, it seems that way. I feel that possibly that's an accurate statement.
Yep. Have a fantastic day, everyone. OffTheHookSports.com will have the latest coverage on the Vols. Josh Heupel will visit with the Vols, visit with the media, I should say. Excuse me. All discombobulated because I'm having a little bit of technical issues on my end. But Josh Heupel will visit with the Vols later today, Amanda. And I would say that he will come down hard on Tennessee. I was going to refer to Jeremy Banks too. I'm kind of interested to see what the situation is with Jeremy Banks and what the situation is with Tennessee's linebackers in general, because they've got to get better in pass coverage. That's a real issue. So everyone have an absolutely fantastic day. Again, we'll have Josh Heupel's comments and our reaction to that on offthehooksports.com. Check out our YouTube channel. A lot going on there. And yes, Amanda?
Oh, sorry.
Well,
yes, I picked my picks. I was 3 of 4. 3 of 4. Also calling the upset for Florida. And I picked App State to cover the spread at 18.5, which they did more than just cover the spread. I would really like to know what the money line was on that game. But anyway, sorry. Continue on.
Yep. So you were 3 and 1, 3 of 4. I know what you mean, but it makes it sound a little bit like 3 and 4. You weren't 3 and 4. You were 3 and 1. So
3 and 1.
That puts you at the season as you turn things around at 4 and 5. Does that sound right?
We'll do 3 and 5 because 3 and 5 and 1.
3 and 5 and getting there. She's Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. We'll visit with you at 8:30 every weekday. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe